Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to Talent Connect 2014, and in particular, the session here today, which we're going to cover InMail best practice, the greatest hits version. InMails are a key part of the toolbox that recruiters use to engage and attract talent. We're really excited to tell you about how you can actually apply some great tips. We have 5 tips we're going to cover, and how you can actually engage that talent to hopefully impact the way you hire, engage great talent, and actually start to deliver ROI. My name's Harry DeBar, and I work as a customer success consultant at LinkedIn. I've been with LinkedIn for 3 years. It's been an amazing journey for me. I actually joined LinkedIn as part of the in-house recruiting team. And prior to that, I was actually a customer. So I have been where you are now, trying to understand how to leverage LinkedIn to deliver ROI as part of your day-to-day activities.
Hi, my name is Africa Muñoz, and I am also a customer success consultant based in Madrid. And I take care of what we call Iberia market, which is Spain and Portugal. I've been a recruiter myself for more than 5 years, and since the last 1.5 years, I am taking care of the clients, as I say, Portuguese and Spanish. It's been an amazing journey too, quite intense, sometimes, as you can imagine, taking care of all those regions. But the great part of it is that I've been able to meet very different clients from different countries with different realities. So my aim for today is to be able to share all of these experiences, all of these stories that I know from my clients, and to help you with that.
So guys, let's start with a quote. Music expresses that which cannot be said and on which it is impossible to be silent. For those of you that don't know, Victor Hugo is a famous French writer and poet, arguably the best of his generation in France, it has been told. He actually wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Miserables. Okay, so when we read that quote, when we think about music, what feeling does that give you when you hear a song for the first time? Yeah. Is it joy, or is it pain, actually, when you just don't like that song? I'm sure you can think of a few songs that cause that, where you want to just switch it off. So let's replace the word music with InMails, okay? Let's think about the feeling that a prospect or a candidate has when they receive that first InMail, or second or third. Is it interest, curiosity, flattery, or actually annoyance, and then they don't respond? It's amazing when you actually think about the feeling that someone has when they receive an InMail. And actually, we can draw some interesting parallels between how music and InMails can create that type of engagement and feeling. What we can also do is think quite thoughtfully around how you apply that. In the musical context, there's some amazing songwriters out there. They're creative, they're artistic. They think about the wonder that they can give when they create that music. But then there's also individuals that focus on the science, the beats per minute. But they, again, still succeed in delivering amazing feelings when you listen to their music. Another example. Let's take the Beatles, arguably one of the greatest bands in the 20th century. Hundreds, I'll say hundreds of number ones, probably not, but close. And worldwide acclaim. But what's really interesting about the Beatles is that 21 of their songs, if you took an analytical view, 21 of their songs could be sung with just 3 chords. And if you did Google this, or use any other search engine for that matter, you can actually find that out on a YouTube video, which is really interesting to watch, and I recommend you guys do that. And it still creates that sense of wonderment and interest just by using those 3 chords. So with that, we're going to take you on a musical journey. We're going to talk about the 5 tips, and it's going to be some fun today.
But before going into details on how oops!
Sorry.
I did it again.
We did do it again. That was so not planned, by the way.
No. But before going into details on how to achieve this wonder, I think it's fair to take a look at the pitfalls, right? So, if you don't want to see yourself regretting a mistake you've done, like Britney Spears or myself, you might want to know what are the most common mistakes a recruiter can do. So here we have our first example. In this case, I want you to try to think like if you were the recipient. So let's come back to our last Monday, 9 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps you have tons of emails to read, some meetings to attend, or some interviews to do. Plus, you are not really looking for a job. You might be happy with the job you're doing. You have been working at the same company for years. So, you are not feeling like changing job now. Do you really think you would spend the time to go through all of these details? I don't think so. So if you are sending this type of email, you are losing the opportunity to find people as talented as you are. And in this case, it's because we give them, as you can imagine, way too much information. Then we have a second example, and in this case, I want you to read it. I want you to go through the content. We make it all about us, right? It's too selfie. We are talking only about our necessities. We are talking about I need, I am looking for, I. And I understand, because I have been a recruiter, as I said before, that sometimes recruiting can be hard, and you might find yourself struggling to find the right talent at the right time. But if you are transmitting this sense of urgency, of necessity to that candidate, you are losing them again. In the end, if a prospect decides that he wants to continue on the recruitment process, do you think it's going to be because they want to help you on your work? Or is more because they want to help themselves on their career development? Here we have our last example. And again, I'll give you a moment. Sometimes we create good content, but in the end, we don't personalize it. So it sounds like a template. We make the prospect feel like a number. And this is the worst mistake we can ever do, because you are losing credibility. So it's not about the job open position that you have now, but it's also for upcoming opportunities that might come. What we are trying to show you is how important is to be not only to try to think not only like a recruiter, but also try to put yourself on the candidate's shoes and try to, to have an idea how would you feel if you were receiving the email that you are sending to the candidate. And it's also really important for you to know that the email is just the main or the first touch point on the prospect journey. And each single touch point is an opportunity for you to share your employee value proposition. Let's say that a candidate receives your email. What do you think that candidate will do next? Checking your profile? Of course. They want to know more about you and also about your company. Who is the sender? So he or she will click on your name or picture, and he will try to gather more information about you. You have to be conscious about this, because you should be the best brand ambassador of your company. Normally you are the first one. Then, if it sounds interesting, the candidate might want to know more about your company. He will click on your company's name, he will go to your company's page, and he will gather more information about your company. Perhaps that candidate is able to see some great testimonials or just a great video where your employees are sharing how wonderful it is to work at your company. And suddenly, that candidate is able to see the position that you were mentioning on your email. He's able, or she, again, sorry, I always say he, he or she is able to see all of the details of the project, but also the conditions and much more. So with all of this information, that candidate is going to take a decision on he wants to continue in the recruitment process or not. So in the end, you have a candidate or you don't. How do we get candidates or prospects into this wonder cycle? Time to play the music.
Hello. I can see it in your eyes. I can see it in your smile.
Okay, but before showing you an example on how to personalize the email, that would be our first tip, I want to do a kind of a role play with you. This time, I'm going to be the prospect. And let me tell you my story. I'm a very well-recognized salesperson at my industry. My company is treating me really well. They are paying me a good money. And I don't feel like changing company now. And you contact me. Why would you think I should trust you and not other recruiters that are knocking at my door. I do so if I think that you are an expert on recruitment and career development, and you have contacted me and not many other people because you think that this could be a great opportunity for my career development. Actually, this is my story. I was working for a staffing agency. I was successful by then, so there was no point for me to change. And yeah, LinkedIn sent me an email. And you might be thinking, yeah, but it was LinkedIn, you know, it's kind of a big brand. I know, but I was successful. And actually, the position that they were mentioning, it wasn't about sales. It wasn't about recruitment, but it was about some kind of advisor slash trainer slash consultant. Somehow, I was going to throw away all my years of experience, all the years that I've been working so hard to be good at sales and to have a good reputation. If I decided to continue with the conversation with this recruiter was because this email was so personalized that, I mean, there were no other option. If that person that is expert is saying that this is my opportunity, I should listen. And I can say that in my dream job, I am using all of these years of experience to help you, to help my clients to be much more successful. Isn't it great? So this is a story, but we have also an example. And again, I think this particular email is great, so I want you to go through the content. Let me tell you another story. I really like storytelling. So Softonic is a quite a small company in Spain, and they were struggling in terms of time to hire and quality of hire, because they were trying to attract talent not only from Spain, but they were trying to attract talent from UK, from the Netherlands, and so on. So quite a competitive market, right? They decided to create kind of a new role that would be a person dedicated only to sourcing. That person will be specialized in only one line of the business. As a result, they were doing a much more deeper screening, and of course, they were sending much more targetized email. And as you can see, they were having 34% response rate, and in only 3 months, I'm saying 3 months, they raised that to 54% response rate. It's a huge change.
InMail tip number 2, ladies and gentlemen. I bet you're dying to see what's next. So, speaking the same language. So we're not talking about writing an InMail in a completely different language, but this is all about ensuring that the InMails you send resonate with the audience you're sending it to. So whether you're recruiting for a software engineer, merchandising manager, procurement manager, it's always worth potentially sense checking the content of that InMail with somebody you know that may work in that field, whether it's the hiring manager, whether it's individuals in that team you're recruiting for. It's potentially worth just checking to see if they would respond to an InMail based on certain criteria that they would be interested in. Really important note. Most people, good people especially, want to work with other good people. And they want to do a job they aspire to do versus the job they're doing now. So with that in mind, I'd like to tell you about an example. Meet Linda. Linda is a recruiting lead at an organization I work with currently. And a few months ago, I went to see them, and actually we had a session about InMail best practice. And part of that session was to just share some really interesting methodologies and get the team together to talk about what's worked well for them. Linda gave me a great example. She used to, in a previous life, work for a startup software engineering firm. And as with anything, those skill sets are really tough to come by, especially for a team and an organization that's just starting on their journey and building product. So she worked really closely with her hiring community and created a coding problem. What she then did was impressive. She actually asked a certain demographic of the audience that she targeted with InMails, if you can solve this problem, get in touch. The response rates were phenomenal. It really catered and pulled the right lever and hit the target in terms of software engineers and their ability and challenging them to actually see if they can solve a coding problem. And again, this approach helped her significantly in terms of hiring successfully for the business. So what's next, guys? Tip number 3.
Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree?
But you don't have to be such as creative as the last examples we have shown to you. Of course, you have your own realities, your own profiles, and you have to adapt it. But in this case, for instance, we are showing you an example that is not, you can think that it's kind of an average email, right? But in the end, what Laura, that is the HR specialist for Elmec, it's an Italian company, is doing is talking about what really matters to the candidate. So, of course, she's saying that we have great opportunities in our company, but she's much more, she's focusing on the career development, on the goals and objectives for the future. I always say that if you offer me a job, I have already a job. But if you offer me a future, then I might be willing to listen to you, right? And again, Laura has more than 50% response rate as an average.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again.
So I think this is one of Africa's favorite songs. So
I wanted to dance, but I can't.
We had to include it. I think it's on the soundtrack of a certain film.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Thank you very much. Tip number 4, ladies and gentlemen, be mobile. So we are an increasingly mobile workforce. Our smartphones are surgically attached to our hands these days. And as a result, we also need to be considerate of our target audience also being in the same mindset. We at LinkedIn have seen that actually 45% of our membership now access LinkedIn via a mobile device or a tablet. And we will, very soon, I'm sure, hit our mobile moment, where over 50% of our members will engage with the network via their device. It's an amazing thing to think about. So with that in mind, it's always worth thinking about how you engage with that type of talent and how they read and receive those messages on their device. The first thing to think about is they're on the go. So you want to make sure that those messages are short, sharp, concise, and impactful, bearing in mind the other tips and the pitfalls that we talked about. But more importantly, you could almost take it a step further. It might even be worth sending yourself that InMail. Think about what that message looks like on a phone inbox. Think about the title, because it might get truncated, it might get cut off at a certain point where you're trying to create a really interesting title, but actually you can't read all of it because it just gets cut when an individual, a prospect who's pretty busy or on the go, is looking at that InMail. And again, it's worth thinking about the limited real estate you have on that phone. How many scrolls does it take to actually get to the message? And actually, do they have to think about skim reading versus actually focusing on that? The other key point to note is if you are going to include web links in your InMails, it's always worth checking, again, how that experience looks and ensure that those web links are mobile enabled as part of that process. So, tip number 5. I think we'll, yeah, definitely. It goes on for quite a while.
I hope someone has fallen in love during this song because it was long enough. So, what are we trying to say? I have already sent emails, and now what? It's over, forever. Well, we, as with the iceberg, we as recruiters tend to focus only on the candidates that has been hired or has been offered. And we only consider them while the recruitment process is ongoing. But we all know, we have mentioned it before, how difficult it is to find the right talent at the right time. And that is because we tend to work reactively and not proactively. However, to start doing things in a more proactive way, it doesn't necessarily have to be time-consuming, because you can leverage on today's work. How many of you have already sent some emails during this last month? Me too. Okay, so you probably have contacted really good candidates that might have reached different stages on the recruitment process, but they might be still valuable candidates. And for sure, you have a lot of information, important information, such as objectives, goals, motivations, hobbies. Now it's time to keep the conversation ongoing. Of course, we know that you cannot reach out individually every single candidate that joins your recruitment process, but you can have different approaches depending on the level of interest you have. Let's say that you have this type of candidate, this very exclusive one, the one that you can say is 1 in a million. With this type of candidate, you should reach out to them individually. What you can do is to use our functionality within Recruiter, which is called Update Me. With Update Me, you will be notified for every single change that that person makes on his profile or her profile. And you can send an email saying, hey, I saw you changed your job. Congratulations. Isn't it personal? Then we have those type of candidates that are quite good. They are not 1 in a million, but you know that from time to time, you might need someone like them. With this candidate, you have to create a talent pool. You can create a project and add some tags, so you have your talent pool ready when the opportunity comes up. But also, you can use this type of organization to reach out to them as a group, to send bulk emails. For instance, I have a great talent pool of HR people, and I want to do a follow-up. What I can do is to send you an email saying, hey, did you hear that Talent Connect is taking place during the next month? Are you going to show up? Because I'm going to attend. If you do so, please say hello to me. Okay? And then we have those type of candidates that are not a fit right now in our company for specific reasons, but you never know if from 3 years from now, they are going to be valuable for you. What you can do with them is take the opportunity of the last communication you sent to them and ask them to become a follower of your company page. So then you will be keeping the conversation ongoing on a massive scale. And actually, if that person don't become a candidate, you don't know if they can be clients or just the best ambassadors you can ever have. In summary, what we are trying to show you is how important is the follow-up. So it's important for you to, to take these tips and to start engaging with the candidates. But what happened after that is also really important, because what you are going to take is the opportunity of these communications, and when the opportunity is again on, you don't have to start from the scratch. So you have a lot of work done.
Perfect, guys. So this is where we ask you guys to get involved. So if you log into your Talent Connect app, if you click on the poll section in the app, you get to vote for your favorite song. How did you feel when those songs were played? How do you think candidates feel when they're sent a particular email based on that particular tip? So feel free to just click on the app, click on the vote and the poll, and what we'll do is, after the session, after the Q&A, we'll announce the winner of that vote, and we'll play that in the outro. So the decision is yours. We might try and put in a swing vote and just try and vote for our favorite.
Yeah.
So. Is it not?
It's not?
It's probably going to be up soon, so we're going to alert. Depending on the timescales, it should go live very soon. But please keep checking it. And with that, let's focus on the science element now. InMail analytics and reporting. Yeah, hugely exciting. Love-hate relationship I'm sure you all have with analytics. You have the ability to fine-tune how you approach your target audience on a regular basis by actually going into your Recruiter license. In the top rail, the menu bar where it says Reports, click on the InMail Analytics, and it takes you to a page. This page is very, very useful in terms of just truly understanding how you're approaching your target audience now and over a set period of time. So you are able to set dates around a particular set of InMails that you sent out. You can also check on your response rates, your decline rates, and the amount of InMails that actually had no response. as you scroll further down that page, you can start to review typically what companies do you always approach, and actually at what level of tenure do those individuals have in terms of those organizations and the jobs that they do there. And then as we scroll further down, there's some really interesting insight that you can derive from your own analytics. The one key piece of insight that we can always advise is that you will typically get a higher response rate if you have a common connection with the recipient that's out there. And it really drives home the value around ongoing member engagement on LinkedIn.com, how you network, how you build those relationships within not only your target audience, but actually the relationships that have in the areas you recruit for. So as you can see on this example, the second line on that section in the middle is really the largest block here. And that basically dictates the fact that you're getting a higher response rate in this example because you have a common connection. And then as you scroll further down, there's an opportunity to really understand the type of content that you're sending out. A great opportunity here is if you do work within a team, maybe pick out the InMails you have the best response, share that best practice in a team meeting, think about how you approach things, and essentially look at how you're leveraging talent as a whole within your team, taking on board all the various tips we talked about. We're also looking to make some amendments and changes to our InMail policy for you guys. We are obviously a members-first organization, and we really want to focus on giving our members the best experience on the platform. So what does that mean? There has been an opportunity taken by individuals that have sent out numerous InMails, very general, all the pitfalls that we've talked about, that actually then creates a very low response rate, and actually doesn't give a recipient or a member on LinkedIn the greatest experience. So what we're doing now is actually creating a threshold. So if you send 100 or more InMails over a 2-week period, and your InMail response rate is less than 13%, you will be, in all essence, warned. And actually, your capability to send out bulk InMails will be restricted. You will still be able to send one-to-one InMails for the following 2 weeks, and then obviously to ensure that your InMail response rate goes up above the 13%. So this is a key driver that we want to make sure that, generally speaking, InMail response rates and the value of those InMails increase based on the tips and the targeting that we've obviously just talked about. What we're also doing in terms of our change to InMail policy is from January 1st, we're actually looking to change the crediting of InMails and how many InMails you get and the timescales of the credit back if you don't receive a response to an InMail that you sent. Currently, if you didn't get a response to an InMail after a 7-day period, you would be credited that InMail back. But now, we're going to extend that time period to 90 days because we don't want to give individuals that maybe spam or send out generic mass messages the opportunity to reuse ones that they've already had. But with that, what we're also doing is actually offering the opportunity to have not just 50 InMail allocations per month per recruiter license, but actually we're extending that out to 100. So you should be able to ensure that you always have the right number of InMails to target the right candidates in the right way. So guys, in summary, act like a recruiter, think like a candidate. Yep. Always worth thinking about how your target audience is going to receive that InMail and how are they going to feel when they receive that InMail. So tip 1 is about personalization. Make it aspirational. 1, 2, and 3 roll into each other. Speaking the same language, making sure the message resonates based on the type of skill sets or individual that they are. Selling a future, not today. Africa told a great story about how she joined LinkedIn. Similar scenarios. Give them a future. And while we're targeting that audience, it's always worth considering the mobile element. And actually, the timing of that message is really important. We all look at our InMails and look at emails in general. And this is not just InMail practice. This is email practice as well. In the mornings, we always look at our phones at lunchtimes and in the evenings. And actually, we may look at the tablet in the afternoon and actually, in the evenings, and then while the Kardashians are on or whatever my wife watches that I pretend to watch. There's an opportunity to catch up on InMails there as well. And then building ongoing engagement through leveraging content. I think there's a great opportunity to actually help the target audience and the prospects that you work with be better professionals by sending them, as Africa said, sending them information around events or even groups that actually they may be interested in joining because it makes them better at the job they're doing now. Because actually, the teams you recruit for are a part of those same groups. It just creates engagement and broader capability building all around. And with that, if you actually end up doing, thank you very much, so actually the poll is up, so you can now access it and vote. And if you didn't know, there they are again. Okay. So we'll give you a moment just to do that. What was in the agenda? Okay. Great. So guys, I've been advised that the poll is actually in the event. So if you actually click on the event in the agenda, and then in that pool, click poll and then vote. Yeah, if you guys can find it. Thank you, Gareth. Okay, guys. So while you're doing that, if you make sure you follow all these tips, you never know. Your candidates may come to you like this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate your attendance. So what we'll do now is obviously open it up to Q&A and questions. So we do have an individual that is going to help us with the mic. Please, obviously, wait for the mic to come along and then ask your question. And then obviously, we'll announce the winner of the poll at the end of that as an outro. Yes, we have a question just on the right side there.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Guido Tomé from Schlumberger. Maybe it's just a tiny detail, but you said, okay, one of the wrong examples, I need, I am looking. So what about if we are looking, our company is looking? Is it any better, or is it basically the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about I saying I, but it's the focus. In the end, it's what the candidate is feeling. So if the candidate is feeling that you are only worried about your necessity, that you want to, to fill out your position, and it doesn't mind who is the candidate, that is the way that is wrong. But if you are making that candidate feel like it's unique, somehow you can say I, but if somehow you are making him feel special, and you make him feel that you have read the profile, that you know that this is a real match, this is going to be much more powerful. So it's not about how many times do I say I, because of course we need to say I sometimes, but it's more about the feeling.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think there was a question just on that side there.
Hi, just wondering, what is a good target inbox response rate we should work towards?
Yes, I take that.
Good, yeah?
Yeah, good question. So typically we see broadly across the network, InMail response rates vary between 18 to 20%. So when you think about your brand, when you think about how that feeds into the message, how you're perceived as an organization, and the journey that a prospect may go through, that we've gone through, I would suggest inevitably trying to improve on that. And again, it all works together. So there's certain organizations out there that are really well known, and sometimes that brand overpowers the message, and it's inevitably they're going to get a significant response. However, you can also leverage the creativity element for small startups that are not well known. So with that in mind, I'd always suggest, and while I never quote specific numbers, when I talk to my customers, you should ideally be aiming for 25 to 30% plus as an ideal. Typically, we see 40 to 50% response rates, and they don't have to be well-known brands. You can be really creative. And it does happen more and more. But it's about that personalization and targeting that creates that response. We are not giving the candidate or prospect any option but to respond because you've impressed them so much.
If I can add something to that, I think you should be your own target. So you probably have a few recruiters that you know that are quite good, and you can actually help the other ones to achieve the response rate that that person has done. So you could be actually your own competitor, let's say.
Yeah, And I think just to add on to that, no role is created equal. So again, it depends on the market sector, the audience, et cetera. So it would be more a case of if there's something that we could work with you on, with the relationship manager and the product consultant in line to you, then let's explore that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There is another question right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to ask, in the last session we were in, they mentioned that do not cold call. Just thinking about the InMails, I've also been at seminars where on social media where they say do not send emails, ring them, it's more personal. Just a bit of a confusing message, so just wanted to see where what your thoughts are on that.
Shall I take that one?
Yep. Perfect.
So I think it's a really interesting question. So old school recruitment methodologies still exist. And we leverage external partners, headhunters, search firms that actually continue to do that as part of their value add. I think it just depends on your audience and how impactful you want to be. Some customers use LinkedIn Recruiter to name gather. And ultimately, they focus on the really proactive approach around engaging that individual in a very traditional way through just cold calling and networking through the methodology. Sometimes, in my view, it's not about that first message. It's actually about the second and the third message that you may send, because the first message can be really soft, conversational. You don't want to be too direct with that individual, to your point. And that generally works well in terms of ongoing engagement, because what you want to do is start to build out a follower ecosystem or talent pools that are aware of your brand. Because actually, one day they may look for that role, and actually you want to be top of mind as the individual that gave them value through content and information. So that would be my suggested approach in those situations.
Other 2 questions.
Hi there. This is a more general question about managing your own profile. Relatively new to LinkedIn, but I have a dilemma. And my dilemma is I naturally feel I want to keep my network relatively small. I will accept people that I know who in the business that I can relate to. But as obviously in the recruitment business, it's a professional industry. You want to have a broad network and build up that network. But increasingly, as you do so, you find you become the target of people sending you goods and services, and that can get very irritating. So do you have any advice on how you can get that right balance between those two ends?
I think, well, it should match your objective. I always say that there is no size of network that works for a specific individual, but it has to match your objectives for the future. So you have recruiter, you don't need your profile anymore, to be in touch with the candidates. So you can keep your personal network as it is personal. It should be personal.
Just to add to that, there's an opportunity to maybe sense check on your privacy and settings section in LinkedIn.com. So on your homepage, if you click on the top right, it's always worth, every now and again, just making sure that if you have a significant number of messages that come through, and if you want to dial down the content, you can convert those updates to weekly instead of daily, as an example. Or make sure that the connections you make are of value to you as part of that, and actually change that visibility, should you wish to do so. Yeah. And again, if you wanted to go through that, we have a booth just in the in-lounge there. Happy to take some time in going through that with you.
Thank you. I just had a question with regards to InMail titles. You've got a very, very small space to make a catchy first impression. I was wondering if you guys had any personal recommendations for any titles that might be alluring but not too cliche or cheesy.
You go.
So I go. So I can speak for some of the customers I work with, and we get this question a lot. Sometimes actually just being direct is the best way. I worked with a customer recently, and their title was, "It's one of those InMails." Again, yeah? It created interest and engagement, interestingly enough, but it was just direct, transparent, and actually there was a conversation creator just there. Another way of saying is the softer approach, which I mentioned earlier. It's a good time to talk. Let's catch up. You may not be interested now, and therefore we just want to create that engagement for the future, as an example. That's the context of that. I don't know if you had any other.
Perfect.
Hi. Just want to ask if there's been any evaluation from LinkedIn's end in terms of time frame to re-engage candidates who don't come back to you. Is there any best practices to follow? I know it's hard to put a time frame on it, but is there any best practices to follow?
Yeah, I'll jump in. We're starting to get into that CRM space, so candidate relationship management space as opposed to customers. So again, you almost need to be quite thoughtful about maybe using some practices around that and thinking about what's the best time to engage. Personally speaking, if somebody doesn't come back to you, do you then start to position the message around appreciate you're not looking, and then offer some value-add information along the lines of a group that they may want to join, or a jobs group, or even just the event piece. In terms of timescales, it's probably worth experimenting. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a set timeline. If you're going to push me on a number, I would say quarterly, I think is fair, just to create that engagement. But you want to be obviously very, very soft and conversational and offer value as part of that communication.
Any other question? Comment?
So I had a question around, LinkedIn publishes a lot of content around when is the best time to do a post. So Harry, you talked a little bit about when to send InMails, and I wonder if we have any data about when is the best time to send InMails. Like maybe it's not the best time to send them during the day. Maybe in order for your InMail to be read more, maybe it's better to send it or first thing in the morning when they're sitting in front of the TV, not watching what their wife is watching. If there's a time during the day, even though we all work kind of 9 to 5, is there a better time to be pushing those more critical InMails,
I think
time with?
Yeah, in the end, well, I don't think we have data around emails, but we do have around when people connect the most. So normally Sunday afternoon, Monday morning, and for the rest of the week, we would say the first thing in the morning. Actually think on yourself. When do you check LinkedIn, or when would you check LinkedIn if you weren't a recruiter? So when you have, kind of more spare time, once you start doing things, having meetings, having interviews, you don't have, a lot of time to check your personal profile.
Okay, everyone, if there aren't any more questions, it's the moment you have been waiting for. We can probably, hopefully, get the poll up on the screen if possible and announce the winner. Sweet dreams, thank God. Thank you very much, people. Let's play the tune, and thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of Talent Connect.